So, lads, today we're going to be talking about the usual. And we got to talk about this when it comes to this whole Caitlin Clark situation. And it's just the Stephen A. Smith show. The Stephen A. Smith show, first take, same difference. But we saw some shenanigans from Andraya Carter where she made some very, very, very questionable statements. And look, in hindsight being 2020, I think by like the 30th of June, everyone realized that not bringing Caitlin Clark to the Olympic team was a bad idea. Even the biggest like Caitlin Clark hater is like, you couldn't make a basketball argument for it. There was when she had that near triple-double against the Mercury, when she then had the triple-double early in July against the Liberty, and when she had like a couple of really, really good games, banged off a few, and obviously the best July. Like by the time the Olympics came with the All-Star break, no one in their right mind was arguing she shouldn't have been there. But for basketball reasons. Whatever about on the 6th of June when the team was announced, I think it was hard to argue basketball reasons, but you could also argue basketball reasons, but people are mainly arguing the marketing reasons. But either way, if you guys agree it's ridiculous, subscribe. If we can hit 36.5K by the end of the day, it'd be insane. We're not going to, but that would be unbelievable. Like, no chance for that, but even one more we have right now is great. But listen to Andraya Carter. So, Andraya Carter, Molly Querim, and Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp. So I'm going to not show the footage because obviously it is ESPN, but we will play the audio. And you can obviously, they've all got distinctive voices. Like, we all know Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp sound like. We all know when Molly Querim's talking because we want to punch our screen. And then Andraya Carter, who is, I like Andraya Carter. She's wrong in this one. Like, this isn't like a dunk on Andraya Carter as a person, but I think she's just wrong in this take. And I think it's completely fair to question somebody's takes without attacking the person. Just like, again, I have no issue with anyone ever questioning any of my takes on things as long as it doesn't like cross a line. But the issue is that I'm at the size where most people don't even care or it crosses a line, which is a little bit frustrating, but let's take a listen.
Hey, we were making the point. Do you want to promote the league or not? And people like Andraya and others were resistant to that playing a role in somebody making the roster for.
That's actually understandable. That is understandable. And I actually think that the argument of she should just be there for marketing reasons, I said at the time, it diminished how good Caitlin Clark was to start the season. And also the fact that the team didn't bring a point guard. Because at the time, Chelsea Gray was injured.
Team USA, and we were saying, hell with that. You want to promote the sport. You put that girl up in there, and people were appalled at that notion.
I actually agree with that. If you don't waste a spot on somebody if they're not good enough. The problem is that we very much knew from about 4 games into her WNBA career that Caitlin Clark was good enough. Especially when, fair enough, if Tash Cloud and Skylar Diggins were there at the time, you're like, maybe not better, but it was an injured Chelsea Gray. That was the only point guard they freaking brought.
That was Stephen the subject.
But Stephen A., this is just going to come from different perspectives because you all's initial point was a marketing point, and that was what I was arguing with. That was what I was arguing with,
right.
The marketing point for Caitlin.
But she did make the argument point, but she also then said Caitlin Clark wasn't good enough. She also made the argument. And not only that, she said it would be, bringing Caitlin Clark would basically be disrespectful to basketball. It would be disrespectful to the sport. I am paraphrasing, but it was along those lines.
What Molly is trying to say, and what I agree with, is now that we have seen how Caitlin finished this season, there is a good basketball argument for her being on the team.
Exactly.
We didn't need to see her finish the season. Every other Olympic team was picked in late June, early July. There was a good basketball argument at the time. There was no basketball argument possible to not have her on the team by the time of the Olympics happened. By the time the Olympics happened, it was unanimous. Look, not even, it wasn't unanimous because Breanna and Sue existed, but it was you did not have her lower than the third best guard in the WNBA. If you said she was if you had her at the time below anyone other than Jackie Young and Sabrina Ionescu, you were crazy. If you had Kelsey Plum over Caitlin Clark, you were crazy at the time. If you had Enrique over Caitlin Clark, you were crazy. If you had Taurasi over Caitlin Clark, you just haven't watched basketball and you just know the name of Anna Taurasi.
of making the team. There is now a great basketball argument. But listen, no, Shannon, listen. How she's playing right now, you just said it 5 minutes ago, was a testament to the rest that she had.
Like, I really like Andraya Carter. I really, really like Andraya Carter. Like, in general. But, like, that's just objectively wrong. Like, that is just not factual information. The funniest thing is the best Caitlin Clark played, obviously, she's actually going, like, she's not playing the greatest at the minute. She's had a couple of bad games. I think, like, it's coincided with a lot of her being taken off the ball a lot more. I feel like she's been taken off the ball. But let's look at the games leading up to the Olympic break. Let's look at the games leading up to this. She was robbed of Player of the Month in July. In the games leading up to the Olympic break, let's just say I'll say this one. This was... Yeah, let's just say from the Chicago game, the second game that they won. 23 points, 7-11 shooting. 18 points on 50% shooting with 12 boards and 6 assists. 16 points on 6 of 12 shooting with 4 boards, 7 assists. 17 points and a franchise record, 13 assists. 15 points on 4 of 9 shooting with 6 boards, 7 assists. 14 points, 9 boards, 12 assists. 13 points, 6 boards, 11 assists against the Aces. Like, she had a five straight game of double-digit assists. She tied the franchise record 3 times, including 3 assists. And in the games leading up to the Olympics, she had 17 points on bad shooting against the Minnesota Lynx, but she had 10 points in the fourth quarter in a comeback win. And then she set the record for most points responsible for a single game in WNBA history with a 24-point assist and 19 assists, breaking the all-time assist record against the Dallas Wings. That was her lead up to the Olympics. She was robbed of Player of the Month in July. She was, I'm not going to say robbed of Rookie of the Month in June, because as good as Caitlin Clark was, I will say Angel Reese was really, really good. Angel Reese set that double-double record. And look, in hindsight, it's one of those things where it's like, hindsight being 2020, she should have probably won all the Rookie of the Months, but at the time, it wasn't that crazy a decision. So, not really going to get too angry in that one. But like, no, at the time, by early July, it was very, at the time, I felt like it was a bad decision not to bring her when they decided not to bring her. But you could make an argument otherwise. By the end of June, it was looking like a real bad decision not to bring her. By about a week into July, it was looking like a what the hell have we done? And by the end of the season before the Olympics, it was, this is the best guard in the WNBA. What the F have we done by not bringing a point guard? And Chelsea Gray can't move. And in Chelsea Gray's defense, she still can't move, but my God, she cooked. Like, I literally saw her like limp into a triple crossover into like this into multiple pullbacks. Like, man, Chelsea Gray, consider what she is doing, considering how injured she is, very clearly still is injured, is incredible. Is incredible the last few games. Like, she's figuring out how to play without being able to move.
And the break that she had, we don't know how she would have played without that break.
She was ascending. She was literally ascending. Would she have been as good coming out, like how she came out of the break if the season had kept going? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. The reality is that she's had a not great end to the season. She didn't have a great first playoff game, and I still think the Fever, with the way that they were kind of rolling coming into the break, and the way she was rolling, I think the big difference is that it wasn't even Caitlin Clark's improvement, it was Kelsey Mitchell's improvement was the big difference after the break.
So we're saying Caitlin has now proven herself basketball-wise, but you all weren't making a basketball argument. You weren't making a basketball argument.
We're not saying we were making a basketball argument.
Andrea, I'm not going to let you do that.
Go ahead.
And like, Shannon or Stephen A, Andraya is trying to make the point that they weren't making a basketball argument. But the problem is that what she said was as bad. I think this can be a situation where all sides are wrong because they're all making their point. I think that at the time, Stephen A and Shannon Sharp made the right point for the wrong reason. And I think that she was just wrong. Like, she said it was basically effectively a disgrace to basketball if Caitlin Clark was being brought. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the general gist of it.
Andrea, I'm not going to let you make it seem like Caitlin Clark was averaging 5 points a game. At the time, she was still averaging 16 points a game, which was more than a lot of other guards that made the team. So don't do that. Don't make it seem like she...
And it's not even the points. The funniest thing is that we saw in the Olympics how well they looked when Stewie, Aja, and the other players, Kat Copper, got out and ran. Imagine Caitlin Clark just pinging passes around. France would not have even ran them remotely close if Caitlin Clark was there.
She was averaging 5 points, and this was like a handout.
No, it wasn't a handout.
Look at her numbers. Look at her numbers comparable to the other guards that were on the team.
Shannon Sharpe is making a hindsight argument. He did not make this argument at the time. And like, look, I agree with Shannon Sharpe's point, but he is making a hindsight argument because at the time he wasn't making a basketball argument.
That's all I'm saying.
No. I hear you, but when I talked to members of the Olympic Committee, the questions were of fatigue, of rest, and of the physicality and FIBA rules.
There was the game was no more physical in the Women's Olympics. Like, I'm sorry, if Caitlin Clark can't compete with Layla Lacan, who's 2 years younger than her, Janelle Salone, who's younger than her, or who's the same age as her. Like, France basically ran a lot of that game with two 22-year-olds. Gabby Williams is a WNBA player. Maureen Johannes is softer than Caitlin Clark. Like, we're looking at this French team, and you're acting like their guards were these, like, brutes. They just weren't. Like, they're acting like all of this is, especially with how much more physical the men's game is. The women's game was not more physical. Like, you're acting like Caitlin Clark would have struggled against Gabby Williams. And again, she might have struggled against Gabby Williams to do anything, but not physically against Gabby Williams. She was definitely not going to struggle against Maureen Johannes. And she was obviously Janelle Salone at times played center. But like, you're looking at, I watched this French team. 18-year-old Dominique Malonga came on and gave good minutes. If an 18-year-old can play at that level, obviously Caitlin Clark can. Especially because they allow prison rules be played against Caitlin Clark. Heck, we just saw her getting hit with the freaking Santino Marella Cobra strike to the eye, and she got on and played the whole game.
And of lack of continuity with Team USA.
How can you get, like, the lack of continuity argument is dumb because it's like, you organized the freaking training camp during the Final Four. You organized the training camp during the Final Four, and you want to know, like, and people are like, oh, but like, other college players showed up to training camp. Yeah, because Gino Auriemma was the coach and he made sure it wasn't during the Final Four.
Which were things that she did not have. I'm not disputing Caitlin's greatness on the court. That's not what I'm disputing at.
You did at the time. You did at the time, Andraya. You did at the time. That's the issue, is you did at the time. You can't say, I'm not disputing her greatness on the court. It's because of all these X, Y, and Z reasons. You did at the time, and it's fine to be wrong. Like, it's fine to be wrong. Heck, I'll go through so many of my videos. How many times I've been wrong. Heck, my most viewed video is a negative video about Erica Wheeler. I'm man enough. I was wrong. I made, again, I'm in the takes business. I'll make hot takes. Sometimes you're going to be right. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. I still think my Alex Sarr Fool's Gold Kalel wears better. Is going to age like fine wine. But I've made some really, really bad takes. Made some great takes about how great Leni Fibic was. Heck, France running America close in the Olympics might have been one of my craziest takes because they were like 30-point underdogs. But I've made wrong takes. Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark can't play with each other. My dumbest take. Kelsey Mitchell is a bad fit for the Indiana Fever. The way she came out of the Olympic break and the way she's playing, I don't think dribble Kelsey Mitchell is, but that is a terrible take. But the difference is that when you are somebody that makes takes, a lot of the time you got to admit, even if your take had even if your logic was sound at the time, sometimes you're just wrong. Andraya Carter was just wrong. She's trying to make hindsight arguments and say oh, I never questioned this. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
At all. I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm not
Andrea,
disputing her
we got to go to commercial. Let's come back.
There were other
Let's come back.
factors
Let's come back. Hold on. We got to go. No. We got to go to commercial. Shay, come back. Let's come back. Let's go to commercial.
Go ahead.
But that's now where the issue is with all this. Again, I do apologize you not being able to see the faces here, but that's when the issue with all this is that a lot of people are coming back now months later and trying to say they made different arguments at the time. And as much as people don't like to admit this on social media, it is completely fine to be wrong when it comes to sports. Some people are paid Vlade Divac was paid millions and millions of dollars to be wrong year after year after year after year. Like, there are people that effectively are paid millions of dollars and they're wrong more often than they're right. The reality is, when it comes to these takes, if you are right more often than you're wrong, you're probably a good enough evaluator of talent that you should be paid for that very specific thing. Not being paid to be a presenter, you should be freaking GM if you're right more often than you're wrong with like hot takes. Either way, Andraya Carter, it's like, in general, I like her coverage of the WNBA. I think it is good, but she was wrong on this one, just like a lot of people were wrong on this one. Were wrong on the USA one, and it was very evident. It was very obvious very, very quickly. Not only was she in the best 12 players, but she was, as far as the guards were concerned, she was the best point guard. At the time, it was very obvious quickly that she was best point guard in the WNBA. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This title is going to be something like Andraya Carter exposed for lying. And the reality is, like, she's trying to make hindsight arguments, kind of twist what she said. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I do feel like a lot of people, especially when it's very different, like what Andraya Carter's doing on First Take, where it's a hot take show, is very different than her actual WNBA like analysis. So I do always give people a little bit of grace when it comes to making hot takes on hot take shows. As long as it's not like consistent like a Swoops. But when you're making hot takes on hot take shows, it is what it is. But when you make hot takes on hot take shows, you gotta not only be able to admit when you're wrong, like, you gotta be ready for stuff being thrown back in your face. Because yeah, like, you can scroll my damn channel and you will see some of the dumbest basketball takes you will ever read. You'll see some takes that look genius, but you'll see some dumb ones. Like, I had some very, very good takes. Like, nobody thinking Dallas, I know they didn't win it. Dallas Mavericks are winning the NBA championship. Is before the playoffs. No one thought they had a chance. But, like, I talked about how the Nuggets were unfair, how things were over, like, especially with the NBA. I had a lot of real bad takes. I had a Melvin Ajinka would be better than Zachary Risachet take. Unbelievably dumb. But then I had the Kalel Ware better than Alex Sarr, which might be a genius take as well. And then also, I had a take that 2024 draft is one of the worst drafts of all time, specifically because Reed Shepherd is not worthy of a number one pick, which is, in hindsight, he might end up going number one in a redraft. So the reality is that you're going to get stuff wrong. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.